Black Achievers Professional Network. We are the #1 network for Black professionals in Cincinnati. We have approximately 4,000 members in the greater Cincinnati area. We've been around since 2018, and we help to connect, educate, and economically empower the African American community. And today we have a total 4 other panelists and myself to talk about COVID conversations. So first, we're going to go through a word about our sponsors who sponsored this video series. And then we'll do our panelist introductions and let each person introduce themselves. And then we'll watch a brief video on vaccine hesitancy and how that affects the Black community and reasons why African Americans are hesitant on getting the vaccine. And then we'll do a panel Q&A, which is our session 1. And then we'll also watch another vaccine video on vaccine safety and how that's actually delivered. And then we'll have a panel Q&A session number 2. And then we'll have a just general conversation in conclusion. So pretty straightforward agenda for today. So first, we'd like to thank our sponsors, which is Interact for Health and the Carol Ann Ralph B. Hale Jr. Foundation. Both of them are trying to basically have conversations within the Black community to help individuals make a decision whether or not they want to take the vaccine or not, and also help promote, basically our community and helping with diversity and inclusion. So we're very thankful to Interact for Health and the Carol Ann Ralph E. Hale Jr. Foundation for their support. So first, I'd like to introduce you to Leandre McFadgen. If Leandre, you want to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Leandre McFadgen, Vice President of Black Achievers. Look forward to the conversation tonight, and I'm excited to have this conversation with you all.
Thanks, Leandre. And then we'll go next to Jacqueline Johnson Wilkinson.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jacqueline, and I thank you for being a part of this panelist and conversation. I am a longtime member of the Black Achievers Network, as well as a previous leadership team member, and I'm excited to be here.
Hey, thank you. Janae, introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Janae Broomfield. I have also been a part of the leadership team for the Black Achievers organization and have been a member since 2019. So definitely a great group of people to be around, and I'm excited to be here upon today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, David Yoha.
Hello, everyone. Welcome. I'm excited to be part of this conversation. I'm part of the Black Achievers executive team. I'm one of the founding members, and this is a really needed conversation. So looking forward to it.
Good. And I am Michael Moore, the president and founder of Black Achievers. And I'm just really excited to have this amazing group of people here to have this conversation, and just feel very blessed and fortunate to know each and every one of you. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up the video, and we're going to watch, I think, on vaccine hesitancy, and then we'll get your reaction and pro and con and what your guys' thoughts are. So let me know if you guys can hear this. Okay, so we're going to reshare.
It's absolutely reasonable to have hesitation about the vaccine, because there have been injustices done to our communities since this country was founded. Everybody thinks about Tuskegee. We can't allow them to harm us in the year 2021 because we're scared to get the vaccine because of the evil things they did back then, because then they win. There were over 3,000 people who were Black in the Pfizer trial. They recruited our community because they wanted to show us that the vaccine was going to be effective for us. And that was very important.
I actually know some people who were in the study, in the trials, who I trust. One of them was an attorney that I worked with in the past.
One of the people who was at the helm of the Pfizer vaccine trial trained with me here at Jackson Memorial Hospital, Dr. Ryan Karsner. And I trust Ryan. I trust the career scientists and physicians at the FDA to make the right decision. These vaccines are safe, beyond effective. I mean, 95% efficacy is like nothing that we have seen other than the measles shot.
And I think one of the other reasons why we trust it is that every other vaccine, you get a dead or weakened virus administered. So you actually get the real virus in you. Flu vaccine, rubella, mumps, all of the vaccines, polio, everything. With this one, there is no live virus. The vaccine, it's a messenger RNA that they attach the message to that goes in and, help us develop antibodies. This messenger RNA process, scientists have been working on that for decades. I mean, I went to nursing school way back when, and we talked about messenger RNA then. So that's another reason why we trust it. Let's just be frank here. Everybody's taking it, and it's the same vaccine. We take it out of the fridge and we don't know who you are. When you show up, it's taken out and thawed out and, there, and the next person in line is the next vaccine that we pull.
It's all equal here. Everybody's getting the same. Everybody's getting the best. I'm very happy that our community has the opportunity to get that vaccine here, regardless of race, gender, sexual orientation, or anything.
All right, thanks. You guys are able to hear the video and.
Yep.
All right, so just initial reactions. Leandre, start with you.
Yeah, so for me, the hesitancy, I was one of the ones that was hesitant early on because of the reasons that were, some of the reasons that were mentioned in the video where, you get so much different disinformation, the history that African Americans have been subjected to regarding trials and treatments, long ago, again, all led to my hesitancy. At the start of the pandemic, we had, our elected leaders kind of sharing disinformation. So if you have your elected leaders in the highest offices giving you information that you feel like you can't trust, then why would you want to sign up for, something that to you or to I feels like a test, right? And then later on, I had gotten sick, but not to the degree that we've heard on the news. But at the time, my doctor said that we don't know what's going on. There's a lot of people getting sick. Something's going around. We haven't been able to diagnose it. And I actually recovered just from kind of the over-the-counter medicines and some rest, right? But then additionally, I had a grandchild who went into the hospital for 2 weeks. And it was crushing to see this little 7-month-old chest caving in and out, grasping for breath. And although my doctor said, we don't know what's going on and, what to call this thing, right? I knew something was going on and it was close and personal, right? So I began to change my thought and my tune as to should I get a vaccine when it is available for my age bracket. And by the time my age bracket came around where they were offering it for my age bracket, I was convinced. I didn't have to be persuaded. I took my first shot, didn't have any side effects except for just being very, very sleepy, right? I've heard some of my peers and friends had different reactions, but 3 weeks later, I took the second shot of the Pfizer, right? So, it was one where I didn't trust in the beginning. I wasn't sure. Some personal experiences happened, and that kind of sold it for me, or that sealed the deal for me to where I was ready to go when it was offered for my age bracket, and signed up and took the vaccine. So.
Well, thank you for your first story. That was very powerful. Jacqueline, your thoughts and comments?
Very similar to Leandre, but on the other side of the coin. I started out very skeptical of the vaccine. I felt as if it had been rushed. The findings and just, putting together all of these vaccines, having 3 different types of vaccines and the complexity of each one, and one being a one shot, one type of deal type of thing was confusing. So miscommunication was confusing. And then the history of the Tuskegee experiment, the history and the stain on our brain from the legacy of that, put fear and planted fear within me. Then, I continue to do my research because I have a young child, a daughter, and I wanted to do the best thing for my daughter. So I continue to do my research as far as the approval of the vaccines, what's in the vaccines, because, we heard it all from, nanos to this, to that. So I continue to do my research to ensure that I knew the difference between the vaccines and which one would be the most effective for our family. And I say that because I did have my daughter vaccinated. She is in the public, her school. She attends in-person school, and she also plays sports. Mm-hmm. Now for myself, it is a different story. And the difference being personal health issues that I still have questions that have not been answered in regards to the side effects, long-term side effects from the vaccines, any of the vaccines when it comes to my health, in my immune system, as well as the trust factor, and fear of the what ifs.
Has this gotten to the level at the primary care physician level where you can talk to your actual doctor and get that kind of information? Have you had good conversations there or no?
So I did have a conversation with my PCP, and I would not say that she was able to answer questions where I was like, okay, I'm getting it. She listened and said she understood. And so she validated that she was listening and understand where I'm coming from, the fear of how it may affect me. I had a family member also that passed away after getting, I'll just say, one of the vaccines. After she got a vaccine, the one shot was detrimental to her health. Now we don't know, and the doctors have said we don't know what all happened. But 3 days after the shot, we did lose her. And so you have that fear, like, oh my God, was it the shot? Did the shot play a role in what happened to her ultimately? Because she also had health issues. And so all of those things are in your head when it's like, should I get the shot? Or should I just continue to live, as I've lived, a healthy life with my wellness at the forefront, taking my vitamins, exercising, and making sure that I'm wearing my mask appropriately.
Well, thank you very much for that. That was a great story and commentary. I think we're going to jump over to Mr. David Yoha.
Yeah, really good stuff. I was hesitant. I still am hesitant. I don't trust, and I think it was rushed. So I'm like 100% on board there. I was lucky that during the main part of the pandemic, I could work from home effectively. So I was able to just, stay away from everyone and just go out very periodically. So, so I felt like even though I was not taking the vaccine, I was still keeping myself and my family safe and my friends, because I just wasn't hanging out with anyone. And my parents are like in their 70s, so if they would come with their mask and so on. So I eventually took the vaccine, and it was pretty reluctantly. One is I am planning to have another child. So I'm not sure, like you said, Jackie, the long-term effects. I don't know if that's, who knows, right? But what happened is the world moved on. So everyone is going out. My job, I have to go in, I have to travel. My wife's family lives in Mexico. I have to travel to Mexico. So if you don't have the vaccine, my job, which requires a lot of travel, my family time, which requires a lot of travel, becomes a complete headache, like almost impossible. Like you have to, if you travel to Mexico, they might put you in a hotel for a week, 2 weeks, or if you go to Canada, they might put you in a hotel for a week, 2 weeks. So just the inconvenience of the whole thing. I have a conference in 2 weeks, people everywhere. The risk just became, the cost benefit just wasn't working out anymore. So even though I'm still, the long-term effects are still completely unknown. Most vaccines take almost 2-3 years before you even come close. A bunch of studies over and over again, most of them fail. And then finally 1 or 2 make it. Here, it looks like almost everyone that started out made it, right? So, so for me, it's like, I did take it, but it was just from pure necessity, I would say, and peer pressure, and just the reality of the world rolling on, regardless of how I felt.
Thank you, sir. I think before we move on, Leandre, do you have an additional comment that you wanted to make? Or
Yeah,
anything?
I actually wanted to go back to Jackie for a second and ask Jackie regarding the loved one that you lost after she took her first shot. I don't know if the family members had conversations with the medical staff. What I had heard on multiple occasions was when they didn't know, right, if it was COVID that actually was the causation of death, it was usually COVID and other factors that they in totality said attributed to. However, in the medical community, they were asking family members, could they use or put COVID as a cause of death? And I heard that, and I obviously don't know this to be true, but it goes back to the trust factor. And that is, if we can put that as cause of death, then that hospital will receive funds under that title from the federal government.
Right.
And I'm like, man, if the cause of death is COVID, you put COVID. Don't ask family members, what should I put? This didn't make sense. And again, the trust factor, it just looms large as a result of that.
It does. And I have heard that story as well. She unfortunately had cancer and was receiving treatment for cancer when she received the vaccine. So, we believe and have had conversations that led us to believe it was a combination of those things. And so that's the fear, where the fear comes in.
Thank you for sharing.
Well, thanks for sharing. Last but not least, Janae, I'm gonna say it right. Hey, you have your comments?
Yeah, I ditto what a lot of people have been saying. I think is general consensus that everyone is pretty or has been hesitant at some point in time. I would say that I definitely still am, but also trying my best to be as just precautious and things about going out, wearing a mask. If people want to meet and things with me, making sure that they are comfortable, with meeting and knowing that I'm unvaccinated and things like that. Or if someone, usually I would hope that if someone is that concerned, they would ask me as well. So, what your vaccination status is. But for me personally, I have been hesitant because I have been on a wellness and holistic journey since 2017. So before COVID and even the thought of anything like this ever happening in my lifetime, I had already been on this journey. And because of that, it has allowed me to do a lot of research in just the body and just natural things that are of the earth, and just knowing all of those things and having had educated myself in that capacity, it has made me very reluctant to get a vaccine at all, whatever the case may be. And two, just as both of you have just said, as far as the long-term effects, there have been some cases where women, as far as just being a woman and the things that we go through and things like that, and I've had issues, and I don't need those things to either come back or just, elevate things. I would like to have children and things one day. So I just think that everything is a little too fast for me to go ahead and commit to that right now, just considering those different things. And I just believe that everyone should just be courteous. I think that's my thought. I'm grateful that everyone has. I don't know if I'm grateful that everyone has an opinion, but I'm grateful. I would be grateful if everyone is just simply educating themselves, make an educated decision and based off of your lifestyle and what's happening in your family, and then be also protective of others as well and respectful of their decision and their families and things of that nature. So I would say ultimately that is what I come to at the end of the day, knowing that I am unvaccinated and knowing that I'm probably around other unvaccinated people also, or people who are vaccinated. And now we're hearing that, they can carry on the Delta variant to us if, we're not vaccinated. So just keeping all of those things in mind as you are making a decision whether to or not.
Thank you very much for your comments. Been a great discussion, and I think we're going to move on. I'm going to move to some. So we have additional questions, although I think this format where all of the questions were kind of answered by all of us is great as well. So we'll kind of cherry pick some of these that we didn't already cover. So not necessarily every single one. All right, so you guys see the questions for the panel? So we kind of covered the first one already. You guys see my screen? So hesitant to take the vaccine, we talked about that. So how do you feel about the return to office? And then how do you feel about the new Delta variant, like what you're hearing? So if we can kind of cover those two, I think that would be great. Mr. Leandre, so what are you hearing about Delta variant that's scaring you or motivating you, or you're on mute right now?
Thank you, Michael. Regarding the Delta variant, it's not just isolated to the Delta variant, right? For me, what's scaring me is the Delta variant morphing into another variant of some type, right? You feel like this is going to go on forever, with the different companies who created a vaccine, whether it's a 2-shot series or 1-shot series, right? We're now hearing that the possibility that they're going to enact a mandate for a booster, right? And, in addition to that, that booster, as I understand it, as much information as I've been able to absorb, is to, protect us from the Delta variant. But then there's another variant called Lambda that's out there. And again, it's just what scares me is just the variants that we don't know about, and the ones that we do morphing into another variant. We hear about your common cold being able to transmit from human to animal and animal to human. That's something that we're going to have to worry about. So it's my fear is not isolated to the variant. It's more isolated to the unknown, and then the actual variants and how they're going to move about our society, vaccinated or not, because vaccination doesn't guarantee you that you don't have it, you can't transmit it, and you can't receive it again. So,
okay, thank you, sir, for your comments.
Yes.
Would Janae, you'd like to take the return to work and just how you feel about that, and that type of thing, or what you're hearing?
Absolutely. So I know that roles are definitely going back on site, and so am I. So I because of the aspect of going back to work currently, not a lot of people are on site just yet, just because some people, they have families or health conditions and just trying to be cautious. So some people do have that ability to still work from home, either permanently right now or only come on site for a certain amount of days or whatever the case may be. I am primarily right now going on site, but it is very encouraged to still wear a mask and things. I think it's a little hesitant, but I would say I'm probably in a fortunate situation just because of the fact that there aren't so many people on my site, but definitely getting in elevators and things like that definitely make me nervous. So it's like wear a mask at all times where you're crowded amongst people, or wait for the next elevator, to go and things like that. So things like that definitely do kind of make me worry. I have even considered getting the vaccine because of that aspect, just coming back on site and being exposed to so many different people, and God only knows what they're doing and what I'm doing that could affect them or anything. So it is just, it's a little worrisome, but it isn't as bad where I am at as I thought it would be. So I'm feeling okay right about now, and just seeing, as Leandre was saying, what actually happens with the Delta variant. I guess we'll just kind of judge from there if we'll even be, yet again in another kind of pandemic phase where everybody is really kind of mandated to go back home and work from home. So just kind of really playing it year by year and being respectful of everyone and things in the meantime.
Well, thank you very much for that. Very insightful. Jackie, so the question we have here is like, how has the pandemic kind of affected women more so or differently than men, from being a mother and, from that aspect of it? You can maybe talk about your experiences there, just the pandemic in general.
Okay, I normally would say immediately, I would say women and the weight gain. But I don't know. I've seen, some of our guys had that COVID-19 as well.
Yeah, we doing it. It's been crazy, all that eating.
So it's not just us women, but seriously, I think a lot of pressure and stress has been put on a lot of parents.
Mm-hmm.
And what in my circle, I'll say this, in my circle, especially the women, we were already caregivers, but then we became caregivers, teachers, house cleaning. And so a lot of added pressure and stress, I do know in my immediate circle, was put on women. And we're not always the best at saying we need help or reaching out and saying, hey, this load is a little heavy. So what I have been encouraging people in my circle is to make sure that you're taking care of yourself first. You know how when you're on an airplane and they say, first put your oxygen on and then take care of your little one. So that's what I've been encouraging my circle, especially the women, to take some of the pressure off. Make sure you're taking care of yourself, giving yourself a mental health awareness day, that you're taking care and doing self-care for yourself, because we don't. And a lot of times women are the ones who are staying at home. And as the return to work came back out, our partners are, we're going back into the office and we still have the pressure. So I think it was a lot of added pressure and stress. And just needing to improve our communications as far as reaching out, talking about our mental health, and asking for the help that we needed for ourselves and our partners.
Thanks very much, Jackie.
Can I add to that too?
Yeah.
I haven't been able to actually talk about this, I guess, in a professional sense or anything, but if you will allow me, I wanted to address something also, me being young and a woman and things. We have this thing that comes every month, It's natural. So beyond, the things that, and I don't want to say beyond, but added to the things that Jackie was also mentioning, I think this pandemic, at least for me, I have struggled with this every month and everything. And then being since 2017, actually taking on some more natural remedies and things like that, I have been much better. But during this pandemic, still has just allowed me the ability to be at home and go through those things. And now that I go back to the office, I hope that a lot more women have been able to experience working from home and going through their monthly cycles and things, and realizing that they were actually able to be a lot more productive and focus in meetings or whatever the case may be, because they had everything that they needed at home to do that during that time, and being able to just kind of get through that period of time. Because yeah, in that aspect alone, I'm like, this is amazing. And women are empowered to, if they do have rough cycles and things like that, can begin to be more open about that in the workplace. Like, obviously you don't need to scream it to the mountaintops and things like that, but being able to talk to your managers and things to say, hey, I'm going to need a day off. I can work from home. And now it being that understanding that I can still be productive at home, even though I'm not in the office. So I think for me, as someone that is young and a woman in that capacity, it has definitely been an eye opener, and just something that was just like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
And
So,
do this.
so do you have those conversations amongst your peer group? Like, is that what women your age are saying? Like, wow, this work from home is a benefit?
Yeah.
Or
Yes, not just women our age.
Oh, so go ahead, Jackie, if you want. I don't want to cut Zane off, but you
No.
still have some.
No, I said, yes, we definitely, not just women who still have that cycle. How about that?
That's great. And me and my girlfriends, we have talked about it, and I'm like, is anybody else going to mention, this at all? Because this is just amazing, being at home and just being able to take care of yourself. And then hopefully, like I said, again, being able to take on that power now, even though you might be going back into the workplace, to say, I'm going to be much more productive and able to get through the day and things if I am at home, just because home is where I can do everything that I need to be able to do to put myself in a more comfortable state to work and to get through the day.
I think not just 2020, I'll say I think the pandemic has taught us to become advocates for our mental health, self-care, and all of that, even with our employers. It was like it opened the floodgates for us to have these conversations. And I have hope and belief that they will not stop. So, when you need those mental health days, if that's what we're going to call them, you have them, or you have that liberty to go into your manager's office and say, I know this is coming and I will be much more productive at home for this amount of time. I think the communication is there. We've started it and we just need to continue.
That's great. That's great insight from both of you. So we're going to move on to David Yoha. So return to work. You had mentioned some of this, but like as a parent of a young child, so what is your perspective on just the whole traveling and just how that's affecting everyone?
Well, it's a lot of layers. So the first layer is working from, and I had worked from home a lot. We're business owners for a long time. So, we did work in a small office, we work from home. So like that transition wasn't that big a deal. But I think I would say my family has got spoiled having me at home every day. So now they're kind of getting used to me. And it's not, I don't leave every single day, but like now I'm like 3-4 days a week at the office. So, young child is, it's a big change. His dad's home every day and not home every day now. And also my wife. So that's been a somewhat of a transitioning situation. And like I mentioned before, it's the return to work physically that pushed me over the edge to get the vaccine. So I would say I was almost bullied into it just because the world moves on whether or not you like it, right? So, and I'm not anti-science. So just to be clear, I believe in science. I just like I'm with Jackie really on just not enough time. I just think the human body needs to have these chemicals in or this treatments in for like years, and you can start to see what the effects are for real, not just trying to hit a deadline. So I'm still a little bit, but for me, I made that decision, so I'm willing to live with the decision. And then the whole thing about the Delta, I'm getting pretty numb to all the news. So it's just all bad news, bad news, bad news. This variant, Delta variant, like breakouts in India, now in Florida, just everything happening everywhere. And at least for me, I've been lucky. Like I don't know anyone directly who got sick badly. I only know a few people who said, yeah, I got it, and nothing happened to me. So I've been really impacted, personally. So it's like, so for me, it's kind of like very surreal. You see the statistics, it's a really bad thing, but zero effect in my immediate surroundings. So it's a very surreal situation. So all this news is like, it is there, but I'm not, for some reason, I'm getting pretty numb to the whole thing.
Janae, what about you in the news aspect? Do you follow it, hear it, zone it out? How do you feel about that?
I have not consistently watched the news since like 2013.
Okay.
You know, and that 2013 is when I transitioned to college. So, and obviously I still keep up with things, but consistently, meaning, you know, growing up, you know, I was watching, you know, the news and stuff before going to school every morning or something like that. But I also haven't really had access to like regular TV or cable, or been too busy going to classes and meetings, things like this, you know, whatever the case may be, to just sit and watch the news and things. But I do try to keep up with some things that I just feel like are important. You know, I have 2 younger brothers and things, they're going back to school, and I'm trying to see what the statistics and things are looking like for children and things now. And it seems like there is a peak with the Delta variant as well. So I try not to, and this is with any news, anytime, just trying not to overload myself with everything that's going on in the media. And I think in 2020, whether it be Black Lives Matter or whether it be the pandemic with COVID and everything, it was just information overload. And you have to be mindful of those things, of not just taking in so much information forcibly, basically, because you're just scrolling and just allowing those things to just enter into your consciousness and to your train of thought every day. And if you really want to know something, sit down and actually read a scholarly, you know, research paper or something of that nature, to read some legitimate news and maybe read something rather than hearing it, or it's something of that nature, whatever the case may be that works. But I do believe that it's important to stay up to date with things that are going on, but just don't overload yourself with information, because it can be a lot.
Great. All right, before we move on, Leandre or Jackie, anything you guys want to add before we move on to the next section?
Go ahead, Jackie.
Just that they're both right. It was definitely an overload, and I was one that was obsessed with the news.
I was too.
I literally had to shut it off some days. And like David, I'm kind of numb to it now. It's just, okay, now the Delta variant, okay, and now the numbers are up. But I was definitely obsessed and had to tune out in order to get my sanity and get proper information, or full information. I won't say proper, but full information. So that it fueled my research, you know, and for me to go out and seek more answers.
Great. Anything, Leandre, you good?
I am good, Michael. Thank you.
All right. See what's on our next for agenda. Great conversation, guys, and great insight. Really appreciate that. So I don't know who on here has it. So do you, Leandre, you have the shot. Do you plan on getting the booster when it's available?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
You know, I would imagine it's going to be on some type of timetable, just as the initial vaccine was. But when it is available, obviously I'll do my best to inform myself, because who knows, I may change my mind if this thing starts to take a turn that I'm not comfortable with. I may change my mind, not get it, or I may change my mind to delay it. But, you know, having family members in the medical field and hearing what's been mandated upon them, those who work in the hospital, it's really real. And they are starting to make changes to insurance healthcare plans, you know, about if you're not vaccinated and you work in a certain setting, such as healthcare, you know, they're going to start taxing you monthly. You know, I've heard to the tune of $200 more a month if you're not vaccinated, right? So, you know, it's unfortunate now that the conversation is taking a turn towards the impact is not really your health. A lot of times families are like, man, I can't afford you to take $200 out of my check per month because I'm not vaccinated. So it goes back to kind of what the panelists said. They're being forced to take a shot, and that's unfortunate. That's unfortunate. But again, back to the other conversation. I just try to inform myself as much as possible, not take everything in. I'm fortunate enough to, again, have family members in the healthcare setting, and I can use that to help me gauge and use as a barometer as to how I plan to proceed. But at this point today, yes, when that booster is available, I would be taking it.